We are obviously in a very slow part of the offseason of fantasy football. So a lot of people think that there's really just not much going on as far as how you can rank and how you can project players in 2024 fantasy football. I agree with that, but I also do think that there's a lot of important news that has happened. A lot of coaching changes are going to make and break players this year. There's going to be a lot of second-year breakouts, third-year breakouts at the wide receiver position. It's really early, but I'm doing my initial early wide receiver rankings, my top 30 for the 2024 fantasy football season. Let's go ahead and dive right into it right now. So I'll tell you this, I was really juggling this first two because obviously CeeDee Lamb just had the wide receiver one season. He was fantastic. Nothing's changing there. Dak Prescott's still there. Mike McCarthy's still there. I've got my tier one guys as Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb. The way I look at all three of these guys is when you look at Tyreek Hill's numbers in 2023 on the screen right now, he was averaging 0.1 more fantasy points per game than CeeDee Lamb. And he played one less game. And what we've seen from Tyreek Hill over the last two seasons with Miami is that Tyreek Hill usually starts out really fast and then kind of doesn't fizzle out necessarily, but he kind of slows down with the big, massive games by the end of the season. Nothing is going to change here in Miami either. I mean, they've got their coach, Mike McDaniel. They've got their quarterback, probably going to sign him long-term, Tua Tagovailoa. And Tyreek Hill is still going to be playing next year at a high level. Now I've got Justin Jefferson in number 2, and I just think that when you look at his per-game numbers right here, you have to keep in mind, not only are these really good still, like these are still really good per-game numbers for Justin Jefferson, but you also have to keep in mind this. Justin Jefferson dealt with several different quarterbacks. He did. And that's just the reality of getting a player with 17 fantasy points per game who doesn't have Kirk Cousins for a whole season. He's got Nick Mullins. He's got Josh Dobbs. He's got, whoever they chose to throw out there. Justin Jefferson had to deal with it, and he was still excellent. I think with a fully healthy Kirk Cousins, if that's the start of the year, I don't know exactly when he's going to be fully healthy and back, but Justin Jefferson was still excellent to me. And it may feel like a slight to have CeeDee Lamb at 3. He's in tier 1 for this reason. I don't care if you, honestly, like this tier 1 can kind of go whichever way you want to. I'm thinking that Tyreek's going to be my number 1. And CeeDee Lamb, like I said earlier, nothing's changing. I mean, he's got Mike McCarthy again. He's got Dak Prescott again. So, they're going to continue to throw it to CeeDee Lamb on basically every other play. So CeeDee Lamb is still going to be excellent next year. At number 4, I've got Jamar Chase. And I think that Jamar Chase, when you really think about it, aside from his rookie season, he's actually been a little bit disappointing because of the expectations that have been assigned to him. Now, let's look at 2022. 2022, he missed a good chunk of games because of a hip injury, right? So, missed some time there and, played really well when he was there. And then in 2023, obviously, the factor being Joe Burrow missing a lot of time as well. So, Jamar Chase has not really gotten the 2021 season that he had his rookie season. He hasn't even had the opportunity to do it. Whether it's injuries to him or Burrow, there's been outside factors that have affected this. That's why I think that Jamar Chase going into 2024, likely without T. Higgins, it's just going to be targets galore. And Joe Burrow and Jamar already have the great chemistry. So I've got Jamar at 4. And I've got Aman Ros Brown one spot over Puka Nacua at 5 and 6. Aman Ros Brown is just simply fantastic. I mean, he is now the modern day Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen gets open and he consistently does it. And he's a target hog because he gets open. And Jared Goff loves that. So Jared Goff and Aman Ros Brown are going to continue to be great. And the other big part of this is that a couple weeks ago, everybody thought that Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, was bound to be a head coach this year. He committed to the Detroit Lions again, and I gotta tell you, this is going under the radar as one of the most important pieces and one of the most important coaching hires / non-hires of fantasy football. Ben Johnson sticking in Detroit gives me so much confidence, like I had in 2023 with Lions fantasy options. Aman Ros Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. You want those guys in fantasy football. And then Puka Nacua is just simply in a position where it's like he's now the new Lion. Cooper Kupp is going to be a good number 2, I think, moving forward. But with Matt Stafford, there was a clear decision that Puka Nacua is now the guy. And for good, very, very good reason. Look at the numbers on the screen. Who was expecting this to happen? Nobody. So Puka Nacua was excellent, and I could expect him to have another great season in 2024. Nico Collins at number 7 and Keenan Allen at number 8. Nico Collins is just in the perfect position. Nico Collins coming into his 4th year as a wide receiver in Houston, so he's playing on a contract year unless they sign him during the offseason. And his brilliant rookie quarterback is now going to be in his 2nd season. It doesn't get much better than this. It reminds me of Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow a couple years ago, right? So Nico Collins, I think, is just in a great position. And let me be clear, I like Tank Dell a lot. We may or may not talk about him later on in this video. But Nico Collins, I think, is just in prime position because he's a typical X receiver size. And him and CJ Stroud together, they can catch absolute fire. And then Keenan Allen, every year, people underestimate this guy. He gets it done. He gets it done. And last year, in 2023, he was on track to be a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. And then he decided when Justin Herbert went down, you know what? I'm not going to risk it either. Now with Jim Harbaugh there, providing the stability, Jim Harbaugh has already spoken glowingly about Keenan Allen in his introductory press conference and to the media. Jim Harbaugh, I think, knows how valuable Keenan Allen is and wants to keep him there. Keenan Allen, I don't see him going anywhere as long as he can stay healthy, because we know for a fact he can still play at a very high level based on 2023. AJ Brown at number 9, and yes, Garrett Wilson at number 10. I'm counting on it this year. It's now or never for him. AJ Brown is just in a position where I really don't know where to go with him. I'll be completely honest. I'm very worried about the Eagles' offense. Very worried. I don't... It's hard because I really like the Eagles' options. I really like AJ Brown as a player. And you can see on the screen, what he did in 2023 was very good. The problem is that, you know, as the whole team went, that last month and a half to 2 months, it was just downhill from there. AJ Brown was scoring like 30 points a game by midseason. And then it went back down. So AJ Brown, I'm a little bit worried about. Not necessarily the player he is, but the offense he's on. So let's see how Jalen Hurts gets back to it. And then Garrett Wilson, like I said, this is just me continuing how I felt heading into 2023 when I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be the guy. I thought Garrett Wilson was going to be a breakout. If we can get Aaron Rodgers back, I think it's this year. Garrett Wilson, now 2 years in the NFL, over 1,000 yards. With Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Joe Flacco in 2023. I mean, he's had so many just scrap heap quarterbacks to play with. If he gets stability at the quarterback position, I don't see how Garrett Wilson is not a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy. So I'm banking on it this year. Please keep Aaron Rodgers wrapped in bubble wrap for the offseason. DJ Moore and Devonte Adams at 11 and 12. DJ Moore is in a position sort of comparable to AJ Brown for me, because I really loved what I saw from DJ Moore last year. And I do think that there's a chance that he could have another top tier season again. But the other part of me is like, there's a lot of instability happening right now at the quarterback position. Whether or not they get Caleb Williams, I'm thinking they will draft Caleb Williams. I don't necessarily think it's going to mean great things year one with Caleb. It could. DJ Moore is great, but how great is Caleb going to be right out of the gate? That's the question I have. So DJ Moore, high upside, sitting here at 11 for now. And then Devonte Adams at 12 is just, listen, last year was last year. It was a disappointing year in fantasy for him. Strong finish because of his performance in the championship week in week 17. But overall, not what you'd expect from Devonte Adams. Well, Devonte Adams still had a very, very good finish at the wide receiver 11 in half PPR. So it's not like Devonte Adams just dropped off a cliff like Stefon Diggs and Cooper Kupp. No, Devonte Adams is still excellent. It's just coming down to how does this offense run in 2024 and what kind of quarterback situation is he going to have? So there's those questions right there. I've heard rumors, maybe a reunion with Rodgers. We'll see how that goes. Right now, I've got him sitting at 12. Chris Olave and Brandon Aiyuk at 13 and 14. Chris Olave, I think, is just a pretty steady option here at like 12 to 15 range. Olave, I had really high hopes for him in 2023, and really he had a lot of good things on his side. As bad as Carr was, there was a lot of stability at the quarterback position at least. They weren't changing quarterbacks left and right. Olave was a target hog, but I mean, he still ended up as the wide receiver 19. So disappointing. I wish that we would see more from Olave, but I'm really not certain how much more we will see. But I like him here at 13. And Aiyuk is just in a situation where he's going to be on his 5th-year option unless they sign him to a contract. I've heard rumors the 49ers might trade him. I don't buy that, really. Very good player. This is filming before the Super Bowl. He's been a big factor for them all year long. So Brandon Aiyuk is in a position where I do think that he is going to want to play again very well. And the question ultimately is, how much does Deebo Samuel take away from Aiyuk? Because that happens when Deebo plays. But I like Aiyuk more than I like Deebo in fantasy. Mike Evans at 15 is difficult to rank right now. And Michael Pittman at 16. Pretty easy to rank. Mike Evans is difficult because there's so many questions. He's over 30 now. He had a fantastic season in 2023. Very similar to a Keenan Allen. We know the dude can still play. Where does he play in 2024? Because the Buccaneers don't appear to be interested in having him back. So my guess is that a guy like this goes to a good contending team. The Chiefs need a wide receiver, clearly. You know, maybe he goes to Baltimore. I doubt that. Maybe he goes to Buffalo. I don't know. There's a lot of ways that I think that Mike Evans could go that would give him a lot of fantasy upside. And again, we know how good he was in 2023. He didn't fall off a cliff. I don't expect that, especially if he goes to a really top-tier team. And then Michael Pittman at 16, it may sound low, but I mean, really the reality with Michael Pittman every year is that his ceiling has been around this range. He was the wide receiver 15 in 2023. And my big thing is, let's get a full season of Anthony Richardson and see what he can do. Because Michael Pittman has got so many things on his side. Offensive coach is tremendous. I love myself some Shane Steichen. He's a great offensive schemer and just plays to the strengths of his players. Anthony Richardson was looking really good until he went down. So Anthony Richardson back, I think Michael Pittman is again a very good wide receiver in fantasy. And, you know, Michael Pittman Jr., I know that he's a free agent this offseason. My guess is that Indianapolis is going to want him back. That's why I've got him at 16. Deebo Samuel at 17 and Rashid Rice at 18. Deebo Samuel, like I was discussing earlier, he's just a wild card. And that's just the best way I could put it, because Deebo Samuel to me is like the kind of guy that is going to get you massive games and then he's going to just take a dump on you. He's similar to a Gabe Davis in that sense, but he's more consistent than a Gabe Davis. Like, he's more consistently important to his offense. So that's why I feel good about having Deebo in this range, because it's like, won't he get you 30 points this week, or won't he get you 0? Both are in the cards. It's more frequent that he gets you better games than Gabe Davis, because he has that kind of medium where he can get you 12 to 13 points. Gabe Davis is like 30 points or nothing. So Deebo Samuel comfortably here at 17. And then Rashid Rice at 18, simply just in a situation where he's playing with the best quarterback in football and he's playing with the best coach in football. Situation's easy for him. And who knows how much more Travis Kelce has left in the tank. And the really big question I have with Rashid Rice is, I don't think that they're going to use him as their wide receiver 1. I would bet that they would sign a guy like Mike Evans. Mike Evans makes so much sense to me in Kansas City because he's a veteran. They don't have to sign him to a massive contract, and he can still play at a high level and be a wide receiver 1. And Rashid Rice, I think, flourishes as a wide receiver 2. And the good thing is, you've got a wide receiver 2 in this offense. I think he could do a lot of great stuff in fantasy. That's why he's at 18. DK Metcalf at 19 and Jordan Addison at 20. DK Metcalf, there's changes again. I mean, obviously they've got a new head coach, and obviously their quarterback situation is, in my opinion, gross. I think there's a decent chance they draft a quarterback in 2024, and that could change a lot. But the problem is that their head coach is a defensive guy, so I don't know how much different the offense looks necessarily. DK Metcalf, similar to Deebo Samuel in a lot of ways. He gets you 30 to 35, or he gets you nothing. That's always been my problem with DK Metcalf. And I like the emergence of Jack Smith-Njigba, who we'll probably talk about a little bit later on in this video. And then Jordan Addison, just in an offense that's pass-centric. And I love Jordan Addison. Loved him way back in the day, before he was even at USC in college. Loved him at Pitt. So Jordan Addison, I think that is just in a situation where he's a great player, great rookie year, gets a good quarterback back again with Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson taking up double coverage. Jordan Addison is going to continue to do great in fantasy football. Big question is, who's the quarterback? Maybe is it someone different, and can he stay healthy? Devonte Smith and Jaylen Waddle at 21 and 22. Now, this might feel a little bit low for these two guys, and I think that, you know, especially Devonte is viewed very favorably in the fantasy football community. And let me be clear, I like myself some Devonte Smith. I really like the player. I've always liked Devonte Smith. But here's the thing. I think that we need to put things into context. Obviously, you can see the numbers on the screen. He was the wide receiver 20 in 2023. Devonte Smith had a tale of 2 to 3 seasons, really. That first little bit, he was going off. Right? He was starting the year out strong. There was a question at that time during that year. I remember doing the trade target videos. Should I trade AJ Brown for Devonte Smith straight up? And I said, no, don't do that. Because the second half happened and he just fell off the face of the earth, basically. Had a little bit of a resurgence and then kind of just evened out. So Devonte Smith, I like the player. Like I said with AJ Brown, I've got concerns about this offense though. And I think that having him here at 21 is very, very fair. And then Jaylen Waddle at 22, you know, this year was a disappointing year for Jaylen Waddle. I don't think people understand how disappointing. He was the wide receiver 34.5 PPR. He only had 4 touchdowns this year, and that was a big problem. And he also missed 3 games. So the problem with Jaylen Waddle is that he's such a big play threat. He needs to find the end zone, because he's never been a big target guy with Mike McDaniel and Tyreek Hill. Just over 100 targets this year, that's just it's not good enough to give you top tier fantasy production. So unless there's a drastic change in philosophy on this offense, I kind of see the same thing happening again. Zay Flowers at 23 and Amari Cooper at 24. Zay Flowers is easier to project than Amari because Zay Flowers, second-year player now with Lamar Jackson. Todd Monken, unless he gets fired, going to continue to be in that offense and be the focal point of the offense. Now, obviously, he had that bad fumble in the conference championship game versus the Chiefs. Zay Flowers is a good player, though. I mean, we all saw it this year. He was developing as the year went on. He's an electric big play threat. There's a lot of positives here with Zay Flowers. I've got no issues with him. Amari Cooper's the guy that's, questionable at best. Browns have said for a while, not publicly, but there's been reports for over a year now that Amari Cooper's last year in Cleveland was 2023. Amari Cooper left off fantasy football managers with such a good taste in our mouths because of that elite 50-point game that he had in week 16. So it's like you want him to stick around in Cleveland, and we know that he can still play. Amari Cooper, the story has been the same with him every year. I mean, even with that 50-point game, Amari Cooper's the wide receiver 18. So I like the player. I've always liked Amari Cooper, but where is he going to be, and how likely is it that a team is going to view him as their wide receiver one? Because that's the thing. With Cleveland, they viewed him as their number one. How likely is it going to happen again? Because I don't see a team paying big money for Amari Cooper anymore. T. Higgins at 25 and Tank Dell at 26. T. Higgins, the big question is, where is he going to be? Right? In Cincinnati, I would say that he disappointed. He never really lived up to expectations. I've always said, not always, but I have said throughout the 2023 season that I thought there was a chance that they could franchise tag him because he had a down year. He was injured a lot and just really wasn't that great, except for the back half of the season where he had some big games. I think there's still a shot that T. Higgins could be a Bengal in 2024, but I'm not banking on it. And that's the ultimate question is, does a team really view him as their number one? I'm thinking yes, but I don't know. I mean, this guy has never really stood out as a number one. His best days have been with Jamar Chase as the number one. Devonte Smith, Jaylen Waddle, that type of breed. So we'll see what happens. I've got T. Higgins here at 25, and I think even that could be considered a little generous. Tank Dell, I want to rank him higher. I really do. The question is, not necessarily how well he comes back from the injury, breaking that fibula, but the big question is, can this offense trust him in a role where he gets 8 to 10 targets a game? I think that he's electric and he's a very good player. Great chemistry with CJ Stroud, but I have a feeling there's always going to be some limitations there just based on that size. I like Tank Dell a lot. He was on a great pace until he went down, really. I like Tank Dell a lot, but how likely is it that his body's going to hold up for 17 games? I know that's kind of when people say you can't predict injuries, I understand that to a certain point, but with a guy of this size, I don't really have a problem saying to my audience, listen, I don't know how likely it's going to be that his body holds up for 17 games. That's just my opinion. That's why he's at 26. Stefon Diggs lands at 27. And Jaden Reed is at 28. Stefon Diggs at 27 is just me simply saying, not only do I not think he's going to be a Bill, I don't think he's going to be a Bill this year, but I also don't think that he's the same player. I mean, look, his last half of the year was just absolute dog. It was awful. Stefon Diggs, who pays for him it's a similar situation to Amari Cooper. Who pays for him as a number one? And the problem that Amari Cooper doesn't have that Diggs has, Diggs is more of a talker, right? Diggs is more of a get me the ball type of guy. Amari Cooper's not really ever been like that. So Stefon Diggs, I've got really serious questions about him this offseason. And then Jaden Reed, I love me some Jaden Reed. I've been big on him since the draft process. I've always been a big fan, and his production this year was, fantastic for a rookie who was relatively unknown. Wide receiver 23 and half PPR. Scored 10 touchdowns as a rookie. I mean, Jaden Reed was excellent. The biggest question I have with Jaden Reed, based on 2023, was if you look at games without Christian Watson and with Christian Watson, there was a clear hierarchy, I would say. Like when Watson was there, Watson was kind of getting Jaden Reed's touches. And Jaden Reed kind of became an afterthought in the offense. That's a little concerning for me. When he wasn't there, Jaden Reed was excellent. So I think that Matt LaFleur is going to kind of work out some kinks. I believe in Matt LaFleur. He proved a lot to me this 2023 season. So I've got faith that he'll figure it out. That's why he's at 28. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp rounding it out at 29 and 30. I want to put Jackson Smith-Njigba higher. Like I said earlier, I'm disappointed with their head coach hire. I really wanted them to go the offensive route, but they didn't do that. So they basically got, the same looking offense and a defensive coordinator who should come in to better that defense. But what do they do at quarterback is my big question. I just don't want to see Geno Smith throwing Jack Smith-Njigba the ball anymore. I'm a big Jack Smith-Njigba guy. Obviously, if you've been with me since last year, I'm a big Jack Smith-Njigba guy. I want to see him do more, and I don't think that happens with Geno Smith. So right now, I've got him at 29. And then Cooper Kupp at 30. It's just hard to tell where he's at. Because Cooper Kupp, this is what I'll say. I have a low-key theory that Cooper Kupp may not be a Ram in 2024. The guy's cap hit's big. He's on a big contract, and they've got their new wide receiver 1. He's in his 30s now. So I don't know if they restructure, if they give him a pay cut. Like, I don't know what is going to happen. I do have a feeling that we're going to see a little bit of a change with Cooper Kupp this year. So whether he goes to a different team or whether he's gets a pay cut, stays on the offense, I just don't see how he's the wide receiver 1 again in this offense. So let me know what you think of these rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered in preparation for 2024 fantasy football.